3 years later, during the spring and summer of '87, you had the Herculean task of turning Brian Boitano into an artist. So much has been written about how open Brian was to the process, and the before and after is simply amazing if you see the videos. At the time you were contacted for the job, did you have any trepidation that you could get him to the artistic level needed to win the Olympics? And as a choreographer, what did you see in Brian that you needed to bring out?
Well, I watched Worlds in '87, and I watched Brian lose to Brian Orser. This was before Linda spoke to me, and then we had a coffee. Linda and I met there. And, she asked me if I would be interested in taking it on. And, what I saw, the performance at Worlds, Brian Boitano's performance at '87 Worlds, really helped me see his strengths, and then the weakness in how he was packaged. I don't like that word though. And I could see that different people were going up to him and saying, you got to smile. You got to project to the audience. You got to do this. You got to do that. And he was trying really hard, and it was just not a fit. It's just not who he was. And when Linda asked me to do it, I had a lot of trepidation, but I was young and fearless too. And sort of like, why not? Yeah, I can do this. And Linda was brilliant, and again, very nurturing, very supportive, and it was very much, a collaborative environment and a real discussion. And she allowed me freedom, but she was also there to answer any questions and to lend any support. And so when the first visit with Brian was just to play. We just got on. I get calls from coaches, or I used to get calls from coaches. It's like, can you do this? And you got 3 days, and boom, boom, boom. It's like, no, it can't happen that way. And Linda didn't approach it that way. She said, whatever you need. If you just need to get on the ice with Brian, do it. And I said, that's what we need. We need to get on the ice, and we need to throw on different pieces of music, and we need to learn about each other. And that's where I got to know Brian and his dream and who he was. And so everything that we did was really built around that dream. I'd never seen anybody as focused as Brian, as single-minded. And it wasn't about the Olympic title ever. It was about whether he could do the best performances he was capable of in the most important moment, at the most important moment. That was the goal. And so, when you know that about your skater, then it's easier to find the vehicles. And the lay patineur for the short program was really, I kind of wanted to make a statement about figures going away, and I don't know if it was the last year or the second last year that figures were going away, and I felt that in many I felt that was fine in competition, but not fine in skating. And Brian, and I sort of wanted Brian to be kind of the quintessential skater then, sort of to wrap up the century. So that was the idea for the short program. And then the long program came from Mary Jane Stamm, who's a musical genius. And she saw the cover of the Napoleon thing and went, Brian. And she handed me the album, and we were back on albums then, and said, listen to this for Brian. And it was like phenomenal. But it wasn't, again, it wasn't like we were doing Napoleon. There were elements of that, and of sort of, but it was also very much about Brian's character, which is what I wanted to channel. Mm-hmm. That was a really long answer. I can't remember.
The end result of the program was phenomenal. And skating is such an extremely popular sport in Canada, and I'm sure there's nothing Canadian skating fans wanted more than to see the reigning world champion Brian Orser win that Olympic title in 1988. So being a Canadian and as a decorated Canadian skater, what sort of flack, if any, did you receive from Canadian skating fans or the press for your instrumental role in helping Boitano defeat Orser for that crown?
There was flack, from the casual fan. I think people in business know, Brian Orser had an American choreographer, and that our world is very international, and, when we work, there are no borders. But there was, it was a story. So, there was some flack, but then, I guess Canada also, I hope that they sort of claimed a bit of that too, because I am Canadian. But it was a bit, and I kept saying, oh, wait, Brian has a fabulous choreographer. She happens to be American. So, that should level the playing field.
Sometimes it's hard to change people's minds, though, once they have some sort of an approach. Yeah. But with Brian Boitano, you choreographed Olympic gold medal winning programs for the first time, and you went on to do it twice more in the next decade, in 1992 with Christy Yamaguchi and 1998 with Tara Lipinski. And in the early 90s, you also choreographed for Kurt Browning, who was the front runner heading into the Lillehammer Games. So what is it about Brian, Christy, and Tara, they were all underdogs, that sets them apart from someone like Kurt and makes them Olympic champions?
Training. Simple word. They trained every day for that. Every day. Tara, as young as she was, knew exactly what she wanted, exactly how she had to feel, exactly what she needed, and she worked for it, and it was that single-minded goal. Christy, as we all know, is just, like, a computer for a brain, boom, 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 boom. Brian has a computer for a brain, boom, 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 and knew exactly how many feet he needed to be away from the boards going into his triple axel, and all, knows everything, and the difference in Kurt is his motivation comes from emotion, and it comes and it ebbs and it flows, and it's not consistent day in and day out, and it's just a different kind of brain. And that to me, I see a common denominator between those who win the Olympics and those maybe who don't. There's a whole bunch of other things too, and timing and injury and coaching and all sorts of ingredients have to line up. The stars have to align. But I do see a similarity between the champions for sure.
So you would say it was like an analytical approach where you're going in and you're separating the emotions from it and just doing the work?
Yeah, I think you do need that. I think you do. I think you do need to shut down and, and be analytical and contain the emotions and channel the emotions. And, the ultimate performance is, of course, the balance between the two, right? Mm-hmm. Like Yuna. That's the ultimate, to have that steely analytical ability and then also put your soul out there. And I think that's what Brian and Christy and Tara did. They skated with freedom. I think you remain analytical for all your training, and you keep it in a box, and then you set it free for the performance and do it for the performance's sake, and try not to think left or right or, results or think about failure. Easy for me to say, right?
No, it makes complete sense. And after what I'm sure was a very exciting 1988 Olympic experience, you choreographed Carmen on ice, and you started a working relationship with Katarina Witt. And before you and she worked together, Katarina was known as a very emotional skater, as you talk about, a passionate skater, yet she wasn't known as a beautiful skater. So how were you able to take someone who was such a star and get her to point her toes and extend her lines?
I nagged her. She was a great sport about it. What a treat to work with Katarina. And, you know, another one who's got that steely resolve. And she was trained, and that's why she's got those titles. And, you know, and she was one who, you know, at practice at World, she would skate to everybody else's music and drive them crazy. And she would, you know, just perform for all the photographers in every single practice. And just, you know, so when I saw that, I watched her at you know, through all those years in 88, and just like I fell in love with her from afar, right? Because she flirts with everybody, male, female, it doesn't matter. It's just as long as she can get that attention. And it's so appealing. And so then when I had the opportunity to work with her, because we first did Brian's Canvas on Ice special, or Canvas of Ice, Canvas of Ice, which is where I really got to know Katarina. And then so when Carmen came up, she called, and what an experience that was, because we shot in Spain, you know, on a ice was made in front of a Moorish ruin. You know, what is that, 14th century? I'm not sure. You know, with an international cast and crew, a Canadian cast, a cast here, Germans, and we had, you know, German and Hungarian crew, and East and West German at that point. The wall was coming down. I mean, so much was going on, and we had this opportunity to create this, and we only had about, I don't know, 7 or 8 minutes of the show choreographed before we got to Spain. So once we shot that amount, we went through a period where every day every night, because we were shooting through the night because there were night scenes. We choreographed a minute, shot a minute, choreographed a minute, shot a minute. So we would choreograph a minute while 250 people were standing there waiting, and I would like turn my back and, you know, to face Kat and Brian, and, you know, kind of go, okay, that's a minute here, and, you know, and then and this is on film, this is forever, and we've got 2 people who've never, you know, really worked with a partner before, and we're supposed to make this, and it was the first time I'd worked with Michael Siebert. I had asked him to come on and you know, and assist. And so it was Michael and me and Kat and Brian, and off we went. Choreographed a minute, shot a minute. Bang, bang, bang. I mean, I stories for days, and it was just the best experience, because it was months. I mean, there were bad things and good things. The rain came, we had to leave. We went back to East Germany to finish it. But I'm very proud of what we created. And Kat and Brian Orser is magnificent in that. I mean, I don't know if you've seen him, but his Escamillo moment is magnificent. And the 3 of them won Emmys for their performances, and they deserved it.
Well, it sounds like a wonderful experience. A lot of pressure, I would imagine, with hundreds of people watching you every day, and you have a minute. I mean, it shows how amazing you are as a choreographer. And you talk about Katarina's flirty nature, and fans of the sport and outside of the sport, some speculated that she and Brian Boitano were dating during this production, just because she has that on-ice chemistry with her male counterpart. So this became a staple, really, in terms of ensemble pieces throughout the years. How did you bring that out in her skating?
Oh, you know, it was so much fun because, you know, we were the same height, and we both, you know, have curves. So it was fun to work with that, you know, and we just played together, and we were both on the same page. We both enjoy moving sensually, and we both respond to the music in just sort of a, you know, visceral way. And and she really took in everything, and I'd try to get her legs straight and her toes pointed and all that stuff, and she'd laugh. The wonderful thing about Katarina is that her ability to laugh at herself. Mm-hmm. So, everything, it was all, and for her it was also all about creating. And Brian was the same. So, and Brian Orser was, so when you have that environment of wanting to put in the time, because I was choreographing the minute, and Michael and I were choreographing the minute and shooting the minute. They were skating. They had their, skates on and performing throughout the night. And so, but they were still hungry to make it as good as it could possibly be. And if it took her triple toe, the ice was shot. Her triple toe in the Lilas Pastias scene, with all the gypsies around and everything. A lot of our extras were real gypsies, local gypsies. 33 takes, and it wasn't 33 takes because. And she was going to do it. And the rink was the angle of the rink. The ice was bad, but she was going to do it. And so that was what we were surrounded with, So we all cared about the product.
Mm-hmm. Well, prior to the 1992 Olympics, you became the choreographer for Kristi Yamaguchi. And this is where my interest in skating began. So
really?
Your work with Kristi resulted in 2 world titles and an Olympic gold medal. And for those titles, Kristi skated to Samson and Delilah in 91 and Malagueña in 92. We also just spoke of Carmen. And these pieces of music are standards in the skating world. Do you feel that some music is simply overused, or can a great skater bring originality to anything?
Yes and no. I didn't choose Kristi's music. Kristi Cascard always chose Kristi's music, and she's the one competitor that I wasn't involved in the choice of the music ever, until she was pro. I was part of the conversation, but it was really, to Kristi Cascard's credit, she was very much involved. I feel that any piece of music can be treated differently. I think there's some that are higher risk than others. As far as Carmen is concerned, I get it. I could choreograph Carmen every single day and find something new to do with it. It's such exciting music, and you can edit it in a gazillion different ways, and there's so much there to work with. There are certain pieces that are tired to me, but that's just to my ear. Ones that I wouldn't be interested in doing, but all the power to the person who's interested in doing it. And if you can recreate or if you can reinvent something, why not? I also really like to push and try and bring something new that we haven't heard, whether it was jazz pieces or Jimi Hendrix, when we did a Jimi Hendrix piece with Joanie Rochette that I don't think she was ever comfortable with, unfortunately. So my mistake, but Little Wing, I just thought it was a great piece of music, and I hadn't heard it in a short program, so why not? So I do like pushing that on the ice, but I'm open to anything.
Mm-hmm. Well, your work with Kristi continued throughout her professional career when you both joined Stars on Ice after the 92 Olympics, you as the director and the choreographer, and Kristi as really the headliner. Now, throughout your relationship, we saw you continually bring Kristi out of her shell. We look back at programs like In Vogue, Never Gonna Get It, La Comparsita, and It's Oh So Quiet. Now, Kristi is seen as being such a reserved individual. How much convincing did you have to do as a choreographer, and how do you gain that level of trust?
Well, we had had such a long relationship that, I think the trust happened very early in our relationship. And then, the exciting thing about Stars on Ice all those years was that we were forced to reinvent. We were forced to push. And it was a wonderful platform to be able to do that. And the other thing was that because the way we created the show and people were out there 5 and 6 times throughout the evening, that, you know, if you went and did something different, it wasn't high risk. It wasn't like the Olympic title, you know, on this one idea. We had the opportunity to try different things, and if it worked, great. If it didn't work, well, you know, it was still strong, and we learned from it, and one thing led to another. And Christy, again, you know, the work ethic and the excitement to try new things and be a part of, you know, that whole process was you know, it was just fertile. It was fertile ground to create all sorts of different styles, and you know, it was a lucky time. It was a great time.
When you talk about that time, around that time, you choreographed the infamous Singin' in the Rain program for Kurt Browning's TV special. And that was such an elaborate number with custom sets, fantastic footwork, choreography, and of course, rain on an indoor ice rink. So what was that process like, and what kind of time and budget did you have for that project?
Well, first of all, I co-choreographed with Gene Kelly, right? I'm borrowed a lot from Gene Kelly, you know, with the greatest respect. It was, again, CBC, you know, at the height of the popularity of figure skating and Kurt's popularity, and we had, you know, a substantial budget to make that. And it took, again, hundreds of people to get to that point, and you know, an incredible set that duplicated the scene. And we were in an arena. It was full size. You know, pretty much full size, and we built the set. I can't remember how long it took for the set to go up, but Kurt and I choreographed it elsewhere first, and sort of laid it out, and we and then, you know, one thing that was very important to me through that was sort of, you know, creating rules around the choreography so that you know, things like when, you know, if you look at the ice that was painted, the asphalt, and then the sidewalk, I didn't ever want him to skate through the seam from the asphalt from the road to the sidewalk. So if you look at it, every time he gets close to the sidewalk, he jumps on and jumps off as you would on the street. So, you know, we sort of made sure all of those things were as real and as true as possible. So we spent quite some time rehearsing, and, you know, just in a regular rink with pylons. And then the set went up, and the day before we went, it was shot on film, and Joan Tassoni, who's a longtime director, friend I adore, who, you know, is a wonderful collaborator. She and the cinematographer and Kurt and I blocked the entire thing the day before, so that we knew that we could only shoot 30 seconds at a time, because, you know, that's as much water the ice could handle, and then we would have to squeegee it off, otherwise it would melt. So we blocked everything, and we knew exactly where the camera would sit for each shot. So it was all blocked and organized, and then when we went in to shoot, Kurt had a couple of costumes, the same duplicates, so that he could change once he was soaking wet. A few times they'd dry one while he wore the other, and he wore old skates that it didn't matter if he got soaked. And then it was precision. It was precision. We had one day to shoot, but it was a long day, and it was precise. We knew exactly what we were doing, and it was all organized, and Kurt was a dream. You know, everything happened like that, and it was one of the most magical days ever certainly in my career, for sure.
Well, your relationship with Kurt continued. For the 1993 season, you two created Casablanca, and this is such a character-driven program, which really hadn't been seen in amateur competition. I think we all remember Kurt even holding a cigarette during the piece. So how did you two come up with the idea, and did you have any worries that it was perhaps too commercial for amateur competition?
No. Well, again, Mary Jane Stone, because Kurt had come to Lewis, and, you know, she said, "What do you think, Sandra?" and sort of handed me the music. And it was like, this is phenomenal, but it was a real challenge. The edit was a real challenge. So again, it was one of those, edits that and that's, to me, one of my favorite processes is actually the music. And so I, spent many hours putting it together and, finding the emotional flow for the piece. I was excited by the character. I knew that Kurt needed something more. He at this point in his career, he had done it and done it and done it, and it was like he needed something more. He needed to be challenged beyond the jumps. He needed something to get him to the rink every day, that would excite him. And so this whole process really excited him. And stuff like the cigarette. Well, I like to find moments in a program that are memorable, that you sort of hang your hat on as the identity, as the identifying kind of move that. So when you finish watching, there, it's, whether it's one or more, that you remember this moment because of what it made you feel or something. And so with the cigarette, it was like Bogey would smoke, and we discussed how a European would hold the cigarette, not like a North American, but like a European, and so all of those little things, we this is how I work, and we analyzed it. But I in a way, there were certain things that I did almost to trick Kurt into being excited by it. For example, if you look at the second triple axel, it's not on the highlight of the music. The big crescendo is actually the great big huge move after the triple axel. And I knew he loved that big huge, high kick edge on his back edge so much. He loved doing that so much that there was no way he was going to miss the triple axel. So it was like, that was sort of the transition for Kurt from athlete to a performer wanting to work the character. It was fun. I didn't feel the pressure. Again, I was young, and kind of maybe just more ballsy or something. I don't know.
Well, the program is phenomenal. It's one of my all-time favorite programs. I can watch it over and over again. But in addition to choreographing Kurt's Olympic programs, you also choreograph Brian Boitano's. And I know as a skater, there's such a unique bond that is formed with your choreographer. As a skater, you have to be vulnerable with your choreographer, and you feed off of each other. So heading into Lillehammer with two skaters who were vying for that Olympic title, did you feel torn or conflicted at all?
No. No, because it's like your children, well, I only have one, but if I had more, when you're with that person at that moment, you're completely devoted to them. And then you're with the next, you're completely devoted to them. So, I think this is, a really good question to ask Marina Zoueva, with her ice dancers, but it really, they were so different from each other that, no, there was no conflict, and they had no conflict. They knew that what we had was exclusively ours. And I, loved them both equally, really.
Mm-hmm.
One of the defining moments of that Olympic Games was Katarina Witt closing out the ladies' competition skating to Where Have All the Flowers Gone, a tribute to the people of Sarajevo. And knowing this was her comeback season, and there was no doubt going to be a spotlight on her in that program, how did you and she develop a program that really did live up to the hype of that moment?
How fitting is it that
Oh, that's nice that you say that. It was her idea, and she knew she wasn't a contender. She just wanted to just do it in a classy way, and she just, and so again, if you know what your skater is after, if you know what their dream is, then it's, you just jump on board, and It was fun. It was interesting. It was moving for us because, you know, we were both in Sarajevo, and we wanted it to be meaningful, and it was honest. I think when a program works, it works because it's first and foremost honest.
Yeah. Well, it has been said that perhaps the finest program you've ever choreographed was Lu Chen's Rachmaninoff Piano Concerto No. 2 for the 1996 World Championships. This program was highlighted by a moment where Lulu takes off her robe and she reveals herself as a naked woman before the world. I own your book. Now, given both of your hectic schedules during this very successful time in skating, how did you have time to create such a masterpiece, and how much time did you have for the program?
Well, once again, I had a ton of time. I took a ton of time editing the music. It's key. And then we had a week, we had 5 days, and, you know, not a lot of language. So, you know, it was a conversation woman to woman, right? When there's no words going on, it's woman to woman. And, you know, sometimes it just works. And it just worked. And also, you know, when you're choreographing to a certain extent, it takes as long as you've got. We had 5 days. So it was going to take 5 days. But, you know, a month of editing before that, and thinking. So, you know, it's much more than the 5 days or the 10 hours. And even I don't spend a lot of time, like I don't, you know, in the day, it's not like a 6 or an 8 hour day on one piece. I can't work that way. I work a couple of hours to 3 tops, and I need to go home and think about it the rest of the day until I come back. That's the way I work. But the whole thing, I knew that she was growing up, you know, in spite of people around her maybe not wanting her to grow up. She wanted to grow up. And so when we got to the point in the music where, you know, again, it was wanting to reveal her soul, and her vulnerability and her nakedness, you know, we you know, I took it to a literal place, and the music just told me that. I mean, I just, on a good day, I just let the music tell me what to do. And that's what it told me to do. And she loved the idea, and it made her giggle. And it was sort of our little secret until I think I told somebody, and it's not a secret anymore. But, you know, it was just, and like we all, you know, I mean, Jenny, you know, when you're a young girl and you're, you know, sort of looking at yourself in the mirror, and you're seeing changes, and you're like, oh my God, you know, there's that moment where
I'm sexy. You see the curves, and
and it's like, okay, so now what do I do with this? You know, it's all of that stuff, and that's what I wanted to kind of channel in that one moment. You know, and that, yeah, I'm beautiful. Because she was, I mean, she's beautiful.
So beautiful.
And she didn't know it. And so I wanted her to know it.
Well,
So,
Lulu was known primarily in that program as such a soft and delicate skater, yet you also brought out this sass to her skating, particularly in her Take 5 and Adios No Niños programs. So how did you discover that edge within her?
well, I think we all have it, don't we? You know,
I know Dave does.
But you know what? We all want to have it. So why not try? And you know, when you're doing so many programs, quite frankly, you've got to do something that gets you nervous, gets you excited, gets you pushing past. You know, just try something different. Yeah, and she was playful. I mean, a lot of these kids at the time would stay with me, so I get to know them a little bit better. And, you know, so, I mean, even with Lulu, without the language, you sort of get it. So, and everybody, there isn't a woman alive who doesn't want to be sexy, so.
Lulu was injured during the 1997 season, and as a result, we never got to see her program to La Mer at the World Championships. To this day, this remains one of the holy grails of figure skating, trying to find her skate from the qualifying round. Is there where is this coverage? So what can you tell us about the program, and do you have a recording, Sandra?
No, I don't, and I can't tell you much about the program. I don't remember it. I'm old and I've done too many. I can't remember. I mean, I remember the music. I don't, because I guess it didn't have much of a life. I don't remember it. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was proud of the Rachmaninoff piece. I mean, there's not too many pieces that I will sit back and go, yeah, okay. You know, I usually look at my pieces and go, oh, you know, this could have been better and that could have been better and I wish I'd, you know. But the Rachmaninoff piece, I'm proud of.
Well, she skated that program so well at Worlds, and Michelle skated so well. So how disappointed were you with the second place finish?
I wasn't disappointed at all. I mean, if you're going to lose to somebody, it's Michelle on, you know. But what I was proud of that piece is that she didn't change a step. Like those 5 days in the summer, and from there till Worlds, she didn't change a step. And she performed it with the gentleness that you hope for, but that often can't happen in a competition, you know? That when the nerves set in and, you know, or the edge starts to go somewhere. And I was really proud of her for maintaining the subtlety. And, you know, and I also was grateful that the reaction to it was acknowledgement of the subtlety, and that subtle worked, because often it doesn't. But it worked for her, and that's why one of the reasons, well, that's why I'm proud of it.
Well, the Chinese government notoriously forced Chen Lu to return to China after living and training in California during the mid-90s when she was growing up. How were you able to continue working with her, and what was that period like?
Well, I guess I was part of the deal in terms of, you know, if she was to come out to get programs. I mean, I think she, you know, managed to keep that going. And then, you know, that's why I chose Butterfly Lovers for her. And actually, it didn't, you know, I thought I was finding some, you know, unknown treasure. And, you know, when I played it for her, she goes, oh, yeah, I skated that when I was a little girl. And but anyway, yeah, to me it was the story of Butterfly Lovers was parallel to her capture and wanting to emerge from the country, you know, and being a captured butterfly, really, or a captured woman who emerges as a butterfly for her freedom. That was where I was coming from. Yeah, very moving performance at the Olympics.
And at this time, you were also choreographing for the young and tenacious Tara Lipinski. And so many skaters come to you for your expertise, yet Tara is known as being particularly headstrong in the skating world. So how do you approach choreographing for a skater who may have very fit opinions in terms of where they want their skating to go, if those opinions don't coincide with where you may see their skating going?
She was right. She knew herself. I went with it. She was absolutely right. And you can't fight that. You support it. And that's what I did. And I did something that was still true to me, but mostly it has to be, you know, true to them. And it was honest, again. It was honest. And her she did the Olympics right. I mean, every single day there in the practices, she just soaked it all in. She had a smile from ear to ear every single day. And she would like skate around and be like starstruck, going, oh, there's Scott Hamilton. Oh, there's so-and-so. And just soaked the whole experience in and did it so right. And it was so genuine and real and present and ballsy, and I think, the program just supported that. There wasn't any depth. There couldn't be any depth. She's a young girl. Yeah.
Well, she did receive criticism that season, though, for choosing to skate to movie soundtracks. And it said that you wanted her to skate to classical music, yet she turned down your selection. So what did you want her to skate to?
I can't remember. It couldn't have been a very good idea. God, I think this one was for Mary Jane too. Mm-hmm. I think it was. So that's why I like to, now if I have an idea, pass it on to somebody, because those ideas are just so tough. And you take them from wherever you can get them, and Mary Jane had given me so many wonderful ideas, so I try, if I have an idea, I'll let somebody know, hey.
Had you seen The Rainbow? I mean, one of my closest friends actually watched the movie, and it's about a girl. Well, it's about a girl coming of age, and she experiments socially, sexually, and he's just really. He gets such a kick out of imagining you watching this movie. So I was like,
no, you know what? I never watched the movie. Okay. Usually I do. I mean, that's horrible of me as a choreographer not to have done research. But I didn't see the movie. No.
Well, the program definitely worked, and I'm sure it was difficult when Tara's biggest rival was Michelle Kwan, who's known as one of the all-time greats and just such a preeminent artist. And in the press, Tara was painted up as this young jumping bean. So how did you and she manage to kind of take that criticism in and make her as artistic as possible in order to create these Olympic gold medal winning programs?
I mean, first of all, when you're competing against somebody like Michelle Kwan, I don't even think you're even thinking that you're competing against somebody like Michelle Kwan. It's just like, it's Michelle. And let's just do our thing, and come what may, right? You're not competing against. So it was really, again, about giving Tara what she needed to feel like she could do it, to believe that she could do it. And again, it was about the performance. I mean, of course Tara wanted to win, but she knew that it was about the performance. And so that's how you work. And, you just try and do your best. You do your best. And, you've got basic sound structure that you're trying to create. But I come back to the music and you do what it tells you to do. And, yes, it was a coming of age kind of thing. But it was joyful, and Tara was joyful. Tara was joyful on the ice. And so I think I wanted to capture that joy.